Dan Wells is a horror writer whose first book, I Am Not a Serial Killer, is already huge in Europe. It comes out in the United States in March 2010.
We're going to have different important things happening in different plots, and they happen at the same time. Those are the big scenes that get us going and that we remember, that have a big impact on us. So, let's look at this. We're going to go through now. We start off with our Ice Monster prologue. Let's beat up all these guys and hover in the air and show off our special effects. Then we start our hooks. We have our beginning state for our character, and it's pretty much the same across all three of the main plots. He's a loser. So, then we kind of slowly start building one of the plots. Then we'll bring in one of the other plots. Then we'll bring in some other stuff. Morpheus tells Neo he's the one, and that's when we meet Cypher. So now we've just introduced our subplot, braided in there, and we just keep building. Neo is the wimpy new guy, and so Trinity doesn't really care at this point, and he falls in love with her anyway, because she's Carrie-Anne Moss. Then, meanwhile, behind all this, we have our other subplot going. Makes a deal with the agents. People think maybe something's going on, but we don't have time for that because we need more room here, because this story is really long. So, here we go. We don't have time for that because we need to go meet the Oracle. And while you're doing that, I'm going to tell the agents where you are. The Oracle does this, so we're building now this other plot. And Trinity doesn't really want to talk to him. And this is slower than that, I think. Anyway, Neo spots the trap. They try to escape. And then, huge scene. We get our big attack. And that results in this. Let's toss one more thing in there. So we have, this is the resolution of one of our plots coming at the same time of a pinch in one of our other plots. That's a large part of why that scene is such a big deal in the movie, is because we're seeing these two things happen at the same time. It has much more impact. If it was just Morpheus getting captured for no reason, that wouldn't affect us as much as if he was captured because of a betrayal of a character we liked. So, then we start to move towards the second half. We're now in the action phase. Neo's taking matters into his own hands. He is risking his life to save people, and we get try-fail cycles. There's like 5 things he does. He needs to rescue Morpheus, and he starts by the lobby scene, which is great and it's fantastic, but it doesn't actually get him. He doesn't rescue Morpheus yet. Then he goes up on the roof. They get attacked by an agent. They escape with the skin of their teeth. They fly a helicopter. They manage to get him out, but then the helicopter crashes. There's all of these failures. They're not out yet. They make it to the subway. The 2 guys get through. Neo's left alone. Bad things are happening. We need more room. Did that happen? Awesome. So, Neo realizes the power is in you, Neo! And he realizes that thanks to Trinity. Trinity tells him. So then we have our other thing, and he becomes the one. So now we're seeing all these other plots with their big main events happening at the same time. We're combining character resolutions with action resolutions and knitting them all together, and that enables us to defeat the agents at the end. Yay! So, I hope that was helpful, because the point we're trying to make here is that once you know how to do this, you can take all of these threads, all of these elements of your story and your characters and your magic cafeterias, and you can combine them into something that has structure, that your audience can look at and say, that all makes sense. I love the way that works. So, does anybody have questions? Right over here. It depends on the book. The one that I'm doing right now, I did this first. And in writing it, I'm about 1/3 of the way through it. Yeah, about 1/3 of the way through it. I'm realizing that I have neglected some of these other subplots. And so during this writing phase, I actually stopped last week and changed and said, okay, I'm realizing now that this character is more important than I thought she was, so I'm going to figure out what her arc needs to be. If she's cool now, I want to make sure she's cool at the end so she has a good moment. So the way I do that is by figuring out her resolution and then mapping out how to get her there. So I kind of combine them before and after. Over here first. Oh, absolutely. There's, like I said, there's no rules. His question was, do you have to have a love interest for the romance, or can it just be a relationship? You could do a romance kind of plot, that basic plot, with anything. It could be a guy loving his car, honestly. Whatever you want that resolution to be, whether someone gets together with the significant other, or whether somebody, finally gets their car back from the whatever, I don't know. Whatever your resolution is going to be, that's what you're building toward. In most cases, yes. You look at, yeah.
How often?
As often as, Star Wars is another example. We have our action plot, which is we need to blow up the Death Star, and our character plot, which is you need to rely on the Force, and those happen at the same time. Use the Force, Luke. Put away your targeting computer. He does. Both climaxes hit at the same point, and that's why it feels very significant. Well, no, that's actually, using this system, that's fairly easy to do, because you just figure out a really good climax resolution and then map it out backwards from there. So your second act, of your main plot is going to be depressing, maybe, and bad things are going to happen. I heard Brandon Mold describe the 3-act structure once as Act 1, you put your characters up a tree. Act 2, you throw rocks at them. And then in Act 3, you get them back down again. So Act 2 tends to be the sad one. But you can have other plots and subplots that are happy going on at the same time the main plot is sad. Now, you had a question? One of the things about this system that I was trying to say at the beginning is these are not hard and fast rules. And while I believe that you can take any story and figure out what the 7 points are for it, I honestly don't think most authors knew that at the time they were writing it. And so in a lot of cases, the midpoint is going to show up somewhere else. I actually did and cut out for time. I had a mystery story, a Sherlock Holmes story mapped out. And the midpoint came really, really early. Because in my case, in my opinion, in a mystery, in a Sherlock Holmes especially, the midpoint is moving from reaction to action. That's where you take the case. That's where you begin your investigation. That probably starts really early. So it doesn't have to be exactly in the center. For me personally, endings are by far the hardest. That is why I started using this system, is because my endings suck, inevitably. And then I have to go back and I have to rewrite them like 4 times, and then I think that they're fairly good. When I do this, I don't have to do as much rewriting because I know where I'm headed before I start. And so I can get there more effectively. I know a lot of people, the middle's a lot harder. Middles are fairly easy for me, I think. Maybe that makes my books boring in the middle, because I'm just happy to talk about this dude drinking orange juice or whatever he's doing in the middle. So, right here.
I'm Not a Serial Killer is a trilogy as well, is that right?
It is indeed a trilogy.
Did you start it that way in mind?
No. It was intended in my mind to be a standalone book. And so it had an ending. And I thought, here it's going to end. And then I sold it, and the editor called me up and said, great, I want to buy your book. I want to buy 2 more, too, in the same series. And I thought, well, yay, first of all. I'm not going to say no. But I had to change. I had to change the ending so that there was room for 2 more books. And because of that, I think that if you read the books, I did give it a more solid character arc going through. But the books are fairly episodic because they were never intended to be a single through story. So, any system can work. I'm huge in Europe. That means when I go to Europe, I literally grow about 10 feet. I have a lot of Fey ancestry. No, my book came out in Germany, and it's already in its 5th printing in Germany. It's a super awesome bestseller. Thank you. So yeah, when the bombs fall and I need to flee the country, that's kind of where I'm headed. So I believe we are out of time. But thank you all for coming. Please come up and get a business card and a pin and all this stuff. Thank you very much.